Hey guys, how's it going, and welcome to today's video. This one has definitely been a long-awaited video, and it's something that I've just been on and off with trying to make for quite some time, and that's just a general update on my INFINITI Q50 sports sedan. It's been definitely a hot requested video just to get a general idea of where I currently am with this car. Obviously over the span of, I don't know, maybe a year or so since I've made an updated video, there's some big things that happened to this car. Obviously the big one too is the actual color of the car changed. Because I did do a vinyl wrap. 3M Cosmic Blue is actually the vinyl wrap and the color for this this Q right now, and I'm still in love with it to the day I wrapped it, which is about a year ago. Yeah, I apologize for the lack of videos. It's just been kind of a crazy time with everything that's going on. I hope everybody's doing well and staying safe during this crazy time. As you can tell, facial hair and hair galore right now given the whole quarantine situation, but it is what it is and we'll just roll with it. But I hope you guys do enjoy this video. A couple of the segments in this video are going to be a little bit older because it's something that, again, I started doing a while back and I'm just now getting some time to put it all together. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope it's not too much of a crazy transition while this video progresses. Thanks again, guys. So I guess to kick off this video, I'm going to just go around and I'm just going to talk about the wrap of the car. Obviously now we're coming up on about a year since I did this car wrap. Now, again, you can pretty much tell that after a year of a mild winter, I would say, spring, summer, and fall that pretty much just went through, it still looks just spectacular. Obviously, if it's maintained properly, it's going to look fantastic. A lot of the bigger challenges in this case was pretty much taking all of that apart in order to wrap everything. All the badging, all these chrome pieces, license plate, tail lights, the reflectors, the diffuser, and having to pretty much just clean and disinfect the entire surface and then put it all back together after it's wrapped. I would say maybe the one little anomaly is towards the right corner there, which I'll kind of zoom into, where it's peeling back just a little, but quite frankly, my first car wrap, I do not expect it to be entirely perfect. Some of the other things that I also ended up redoing too is the actual trunk lip. So I did end up rewrapping this in carbon fiber just because it was going through some kind of a fade. So this is the original one that I've had for like 3.5 years now. So with the wrap, you can see it's like a glass finish. The vinyl wrap itself is just as good as the actual carbon fiber that ended up fading away over time, so that ended up coming out pretty good as well. So next I'll just do kind of a walk around of the car itself and just the vinyl wrap, and you guys can kind of tell that even after all this time that's gone by, it's still hanging on really good. I would say really the big thing in this case is the type of vinyl that you're going to be using and how well you prepare, again, the surface of the car, because that's probably the number one thing in this case. If you want that really just clean cut finish, those clean edges, and all of that above. So again, you can kind of see the cornering in there. Again, that's like the most important thing, because if the corners are not done clean, it's going to end up peeling pretty quick, especially when you get into the wheel well area. And again, that's kind of coming off there a little bit too, because these are aftermarket fender pieces, so there's going to be a little bit of gap, because that's actually one of the additions to the car that I didn't have before. So that was something that I did add. The next thing I'm going to end up getting is some carbon fiber skirts for this. The ones I'm looking for are going to have the little lip that kind of sticks out a little bit. I think it's going to definitely complement the car. And just a quick go ahead of the front. And then I also did end up doing a covering here to hide all the haze that's there. And again, it's still looking pretty good. Did end up hitting some rock chips here, so I ended up trying to patch this as much as I could, but Obviously, when you're driving around in areas that are not so good, this is what's going to end up happening, because it seems like it punctured it and then the vinyl started lifting. So I had to do a quick patch job there, which just looks like absolute crap. But anyway, I'm not worried about this. I have enough material to pretty much rewrap that. Just needing to find the time is really the biggest thing in this case. Here's kind of the edges too. Overall, the wrap held pretty good on this car. Again, for being my first vinyl wrap, first time doing it in this one car garage, as you can see, is not exactly spacious. So it ended up coming out pretty good, especially with some of these cornerings too. So another cosmetic feature that I did to this car is I also did wrap my mirror covers in a carbon fiber finish vinyl wrap. So this vinyl wrap is actually by Vivid, which I would say, if any of you have ever worked with Vivid material before, it is a very difficult material to contour. You have to give it a lot of heat, but at the same time you have to be extremely careful with trying to not overstretch it, because obviously then that's going to cause some issues and it's not going to look so good if that's the case. I ended up wrapping this right around the same time when I wrapped the entire car. So you can see that it's holding pretty good. That's not a blemish, that is actually just reflection, in case you're wondering. Of course, it came out as good as I can get it. Obviously, I had to take it off here and then wrap inside the mirror cap in order for it to have that clean finish, which I would say turned out pretty good. The next type of mirror caps I want to get are the ones that have that little flange that sticks out, like the BMW ones. That one to me looks very excellent, and I think I'm going to end up getting that as my next little upgrade. So now the bigger question is, I always get a lot of compliments on my front lip, and also the front lip with the little red line that's on the bottom there. So obviously this is a new feature to the car that I didn't have before. This is an eBay purchased one, which is just absolute garbage fitment. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Obviously I had a little like filler thing there because it just was so lopsided, and I measured it out. I did everything I could myself. Probably should have took it to a body shop, but in this case it ended up coming out okay. I did a very poor attempt of wrapping this thing, which is basically impossible to wrap, but I tried my very best, and obviously not super great, but it was okay. Again, this car is not an exotic car by any means. It's just a car, so I'm not gonna lose sleep over these kind of things. But anyway, again, it gives the car just a whole new look. If we go back a little bit, you can kind of see how much more aggressive the face gets of this car. It just changes the demeanor and the look of it completely. So the wheels themselves have not changed at all. I am still rocking the Ferrata FR4 wheels, paired with the Z1 two-piece rotors. So these, again, are fantastic rotors, I gotta say. It's probably the best rotors that I think I've ever had on any car, especially in the Nissan Infiniti family. I would say they just stop on a dime. They are lighter weight. I think it's 10 pounds less than the factory rotor weight per rotor, so you get some savings of weight there. And overall too, even though I have a 255 on a 10.5 wheel, it still looks pretty aggressive, and you can kind of see the thickness of it isn't too bad. I definitely am not a fan of the stretch look, and it's really starting to get away from me as far as getting something a little bit different, because I want something that's a little bit more fuller. But I mean, you could just see how flush that is. I'm gonna try to get the camera on the side angle so you guys can kind of see. So again, it's pretty flush, semi-flush, not exactly, but obviously with me being on RSR springs, you can kind of see that there's just enough gap in there, so if I hit a big bump, the wheel isn't going to rub against the wheel well and cause any damage there. So again, in that case, it works out pretty good, but at one point I will probably consider getting these changed out to something a little bit more meatier and something that's a little bit not as stretched, but that'll be plans for the future. So now if I get into the interior, nothing really has changed in here. Everything, for the most part, is pretty standard. I have 20% tint in the back as well, and then 35s for the front. So you can kind of tell there. Nothing on the windshield, clearly. The actual infotainment system is still factory in my case. I'm pretty content with it. I know a lot of people like to go with the Tesla screens. Those aren't too bad, but again, I'm just not really bothered by what I have. Shift knob is still the same with the carbon fiber trim. Same goes for the steering wheel, except they actually vinyl wrapped this one, so that's not actually a trim cover. The other thing I wrapped too is the cup holders, and then just really this whole panel right here. I decided to do this just because I think it would have looked pretty good, and it actually did. I was really pleased with actually the end result. I ended up taking all of this apart in order to get the contours, especially on this edge here, because it's such a narrow edge that it becomes a challenge to try to get the vinyl tucked in there properly to make it look clean. Same goes here. So again, I even wrapped the lip of the cup holder, so then you kind of have this, you know, like you can kind of see a little bit of a bubble there. This has been probably about a year as well, so obviously with the direct sunlight you're gonna get minor imperfections, and plus I had some divots and scratches on here. I have another small little curve crease in here because this area too required to be, you know, a lot of stretching. But overall, the cuts and the seams look pretty good. Again, you can kind of see it's pretty clean cut, nothing too out of the ordinary. And then the actual cup holders, again, there's a little divot right there too. That is actually some damage that I have from the cup holders. So obviously when you try to wrap over any damage or imperfection, you're going to notice things like that. But again, it gives the interior a much more aggressive and sportier look, having it carbon fiber. So that was, you know, one of the most recent improvements that I did to this car on the interior. Alright, so next with the engine bay, again, nothing too different here. I would say if anything, it's a lot cleaner than it was. I definitely did a little bit more of the detail work in here, so you can kind of tell this area that's typically dirty, it's not too bad. You can see it's got some shine on the metal. Even the tanks themselves are kind of clean. I did end up getting new filters and filter nets. So that was something that was sponsored by K&N essentially, because they had that, what's it called, warranty for any issues. And then also the Tanabe strut bar as well. So that was something that was recently added to the car. So one of the other additions that I ended up getting on this car was actually a new axle back exhaust. So what you're looking at right here is the Remark axle back exhaust, which is the version with no mufflers. So it's basically a straight pipe or muffler delete, if you want to call it that. It's much more aggressive in sound, a lot louder than my Optimus Performance exhaust that I had about a year ago. So this definitely gives it a much more noticeable growl, especially when you're just cruising. I would say there's definitely some cabin noise. I have some videos evidenced with just seeing that and hearing that. But when you just lay it on the gas pedal, it sounds fantastic. I would say in this case, it's definitely not a bad investment for a good quality muffler delete, I would say, instead of having some nonsense welded together and just having it look probably mediocre depending on which shop you go to. Obviously high-end shops are going to charge differently. I would definitely recommend for a car like this, if you can get the welding work done nicely, it's a plus. Or if you don't want to go that route, just get the Remark. It's basically out of the box, bolt on, 30 minutes probably, and you're done. So I have some videos of that, and we'll get a chance to listen to that exhaust. So the car again is warm. You can kind of tell by the cabin noise, it's not really all that loud. So I have my camera currently on the car itself, so there might be some slight vibration. So if you can just bear with me, this segment is just to hear what the cabin noise sounds like. So I'm gonna do right now, I'm just gonna do it in drive so you can kind of hear the automatic switches, and I'll do manual mode as well. And I am also in sport mode, so it will switch gears a little bit quicker. So that right there was around 2,000 RPM, so it's not overly obnoxious. Kind of gets to that point where 2,500 up to 2,700 kind of vibrates and you can really hear it. So I'll try to get up there a little bit. So right there. That's kind of where the more annoying part is with this exhaust, but again, for me, it's not something that bothers me too much, but for those of you looking at this exhaust, just something to think about. The noise tends to subside once you hit past 3,000 RPM. I've noticed that with this exhaust. But everything else, I mean, you can kind of tell it's gradually quiet, because right now I jumped onto a bit of a busier road, so speed limit here is 45, so I'm going to try to get up to speed a little bit here just so you can kind of hear what automatic sounds like at 45 miles an hour. So now I'm going at 45. RPMs are a little bit less than 2,000. It's between like 1,700 and 1,900. So I can probably hear my tires more than the actual exhaust. You can hear me talking in the cabin as well. It's not disrupting my conversation or anything, so you won't have to worry about, you know, having issues with talking with your passenger if you're going 45. So I'll be quiet so you can kind of hear it for a little bit. Or it. Sounds real nice. That sounded beautiful. The only thing is there's some kind of like odd metallic vibration sound in this cabin, and the exhaust is picking up on it. You may hear it. I've just noticed it a couple times myself when I was accelerating hard. Like that noise. I think I had something, either my sunglasses or something. I don't know what it is. I like the manual mode because it just has that instant torque without having to stay in auto and basically wait for it to downshift, you know, the 2 or 3 gears that it's, you know, that it has to get to be efficient.